Hey WFG family, just wanted to touch base with you today on two things that we talked about this week. One, the importance of a hard reset, and two, what are the things that cause us to be in an emotional state where we need to reset in the first place. So let's talk about the reset first and why it's so important. A hard reset is something that we need to do when our body starts to get into such an emotional state of pain, hurt, frustration, anger, just upsetness in general. And whatever that description is to you, you know what it feels like because it just wells you up and your mind starts getting really cloudy or you get really narrow in focus. That's a pretty normal thing. See, what happens when these chemicals dump into our body goes into an emergency state. A lot of resources go away from the limbs and from the legs, and all of a sudden we're just left with simple major functions. In fact, the vision can even get clouded, and that's why people often feel like this tunnel vision effect when they get super angry. So we want to make sure that resetting is one of the first things you do. An athlete does it after a performance. They start to try to get their body levels down, their breath down, and their oxygen recovered in between breaks or in between periods. So I want you to think about yourself trying to get yourself quickly to a place of centeredness again. It may take you some time, but I can promise you this. If you think about a hard reset after a natural human response, and that's the other thing, a natural human response. There are times where we're just going to get upset about things. That's normal. It's okay. We're human. That's what makes us human. But to live in that experience for a long period of time, that part isn't necessarily meant to be normal. It's not meant to feel that long and for that cycled in energy over and over and over until we just lose ourselves. So what we want to do is work on our breath. And in the meditation we did this week, it talked about learning how to breathe in really deep, to pay attention to this bigger breath, this bigger experience. It helps zoom out our vision. It allows us to get really present in our body. And most importantly, it sends signals to the brain and the body that you are no longer in fight or flight, that you have control, that it doesn't have to overfire anymore. And it brings you back to a state of calm rest. And a few big, huge, deep breaths can do that. So you don't even have to do a meditation. It's not even about that. It's about taking some really strong, deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth, as big and as deep as you can in, as big and as deep as you can out, so that you can teach the body this reset function. Now, of course, the visualization that we did is a great foundation. That's a base point that gives your body something to reference. But if all else fails, as quickly as possible, if you can take 4, 5 super big deep breaths in, blow them out really strong out. Now, I didn't do the full experience just due to the video, but we're talking super long in, super long out, really strong. That'll definitely help you truly reset and experience a different shift of chemicals, mind, mentality, and emotions. Now, let's talk a little bit about how you got there in the first place. We're so normal as humans to respond to everything in our lives. That's how we've been taught, actually. It's not how it's meant to be, but it certainly is how it's been taught. Now, if you've been with me from the beginning, you'll know that there's work that you can do to train the brain to have a reference point. And this reference point allows us to have a home base. That is a truth that's bigger than any noise out there. And if you can focus on working towards that reference point and living in a bigger reference point, then it gives you a chance to not just rise and fall with every human experience. But if you do, here are some of the most common reasons why you would react so harshly to somebody else, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's a partner or a spouse or a friend or a child. We react so strongly because we make their experience about us. Now let me say that again in a little bit different way. So if somebody were to yell at us for something, we make their issues our issues. Most of the time, when somebody's behaving a certain way, it has nothing to do with us. It's not about us, it's about them. How we make it about us is how we respond, how we choose to own it, how we choose to make their problem our problem, their anger our anger, their judgment our judgment. As soon as we go down that road, all bets are off. And then all of a sudden, you've responded in their truth, not your own. However, most of the time, when we're working with a coworker and they are short with us for no reason, or at least we feel like there's no reason. Well, there is a reason, but it's just not about you. What we can replace this quick judgment, this quick frustration, this quick knee-jerk reaction, if you will, to their irritation or shortness or whatever it is they're going through. And instead of matching it with shortness, irritation, or like energy, if you will, we can just allow ourselves to go, hey, this isn't about us. They must be going through something. And understanding steps in, awareness steps in, and then as a result, acceptance steps in. But without understanding and awareness, you can't have acceptance. You can't just accept their behavior if you don't have understanding and awareness. Now, this understanding and awareness that we're talking about is different depending on the circumstances, but we never know. Somebody could be really short with us because they're struggling at home. Maybe they have a sick person at home, or somebody who has just been diagnosed with something, but it doesn't even have to be that extreme. They could have had a flat tire coming to work, and that was what threw their whole day off. But most importantly, typically their behavior is not about us. However, what are we meant to learn from it? Well, one, our truth. Are we going to allow their behavior to be ours, or are we going to allow our truth to stand strong? Again, the reference point visualization work helps us with that. But more importantly, when you start to just stay in this place of centeredness. Now, this is actually called emotional intelligence, EQ, but it's a different kind. Typically with emotional intelligence, people will say, well, just count to 3, or just go through steps of communication, or some other surface form of how we respond. But I'm talking about something a little different when it comes to emotional intelligence. One, your intelligence to know your emotional truth versus anyone else's. And two, the importance to understand their emotional experience that's going on with them. And you don't have to get all up in their business to understand what's going on with them. You just have to understand that there must be something in their behavior, in their experience, in their actions, in their story of their life, whether it be short-term or long-term, that's causing them to behave this way, and that's not about you. However, how do we respond then? Do we just allow people to continue to behave the way they're behaving and talk the way they're talking and treat us the way they're treating us? Not necessarily, but how we respond is important, and it doesn't have to be with this matched energy. Whenever it's with matched energy, it never serves anyone. So if we didn't match their energy, what does that communication look like? And it's pretty simple. So you take a deep breath, whether it's just obviously in front of them or not. Maybe you don't need to because your reference point's so strong. But you take a deep breath and you just say, by the way, just before I start, this is not easy. This takes a lot of work, because to overcome your humanness and the natural human nature, if you will, is very tough. But if you can, and you practice it and you work really well, you take a deep breath and you say, that behavior doesn't work for me. Let's talk later when it's a better environment. Or that doesn't honor me, this conversation doesn't honor me. I'm gonna take a moment, I'm gonna kind of go and focus on other things. We can come back and talk about this when it's a better environment. Environment's important. So if the environment isn't serving, there's no reason to hash things out. You can just pause, take a step back and say, listen, I would love to talk to you more about this experience or this situation when the environment is better. So let's regroup then. For whatever reason or whatever's going on with you, it's okay. That's not the experience I want to be a part of. So let's stop and we'll circle back when it's a better environment. These are all variations of something very skilled that you can do. Again, not easy, but important. Or some things could be just little quips, little short burst of snarkiness or behaviors, whether it's a child, whether it's a partner or an employee or just a counterpart at work. When it's so subtle and it's just little knee-jerk things, you can take a deep breath, breathe them out in your head, just tell yourself the story, this isn't about me, And if they're that subtle where they're very insignificant, you can release them quickly. No conversation even needs to be had. These are really nice. And all of a sudden their stuff isn't your stuff. And then now the experience stays clean and simple. Most of the time when we do this, what it does is it allows us to dissolve situations before they start. And it allows us to actually elevate an experience. And believe it or not, I've watched people's behavior change when you no longer respond to their behavior, their actions, their truth. You just start to stay in your truth and you watch them elevate. And I've seen it happen time and time again. So I want you to think about this next time, no matter who it is, no matter where it's at. Really work on your reference point. Learn how to reset. And most importantly, know that most of the time people's behavior is not about you. And you take a deep breath and you either just let it pass through you if it's something so quick and simple that it doesn't even need conversation, or you pause and you say, this behavior or this experience doesn't honor me, let's stop, and we'll circle back when the environment is better. So that's my thoughts for today. Enjoy the rest of your day, your week. Go back to some of the other visualizations and even some of the other videos if you haven't watched them. Have fun. They're all really cool. I really enjoy speaking to you all. I enjoy the time that we get to spend together, and I look forward to more to come. So, Al Fuentes signing out. Have a great one.